I'm going to start with a little bit of housekeeping in that I want to say that this panel here now, there's one more then, and then we take a coffee break. Both of these panel sessions are slightly shorter than those that you have been used to. So don't panic, coffee is not more than a couple of hours away. So welcome to this first afternoon session on a really important issue, and one which perhaps we haven't explored that much in that much detail yet, and that's the important issue of technical standards in publishing. My name's Joanna from the Directory of Open Access Journals, and I'm going to be moderating the session today. So our session focuses on the learning from a European project for Diamond journals. When I say Diamond, I'm talking about no fee and community-owned or led. Now, technical standards and visibility and discovery are important for all journals and books, regardless of business model and regardless of where in the world they're published. So we are looking forward to a discussion on how relevant the experience that we have here from this one project is in other contexts, and to learn and gather feedback to ensure the training and other outputs from this project are as broadly applicable as possible. So a little bit about the context. The Open Access Diamond Journal Study, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, found that Diamond Open Access journals have an enormous potential to create and sustain a more equitable scholarly communication ecosystem. Diamond Open Access contributes a significant amount of the world's scientific articles and of open access publishing. But to develop this potential, serious challenges need to be overcome. And robust support needs to be provided to the Diamond Open Access Journals community. Scarce resources, lack of expertise, and an overwhelming variety of expectations. Of course, we've heard about some of these challenges over the last couple of days, are likely the main reasons for the low degree of implementation of technical standards and best practices. And these gaps often lead to Diamond Open Access journals lacking visibility, lacking discoverability, and recognition, and hence to a potential competitive disadvantage compared to their commercial counterparts. So the Craft Open Access project addresses the technical challenges faced by these journals, and we're going to be hearing from one element of this project, which is the upskilling of platforms, publishers, and standalone journals to help them comply with publication standards. So I'm going to introduce our panel now. First of all, Clara Armengou, who is Program Manager at the Directory for Open Access Journals. Clara has 15 years of experience in the scholarly publishing industry and worked at Cambridge University Press as an open access project manager and joined DOAJ in 2016. She also worked in science communication as a freelancer at the University of Pompeu-Fabra. Should check the pronunciation of that before I said it. And Clara coordinates DOAJ's participation in this project and in the DMS project. Our second panelist is Xenia van Edig, who is Publication Platform Manager at TIB, the Leibniz Information Center for Science and Technology. Xenia has been working in open access publishing for more than 12 years, firstly in business development at Copernicus Publications, and then from 2020 at TIB, which is a large research library in Germany. There, she's been responsible for establishing and operating TIB's Diamond Open Access publisher, TIB Open Publishing, which publishes Diamond OA journals and conference proceedings in collaboration with various institutions such as universities and learning societies. Xenia has served on the OASPA board from 2015 to 2020 and chaired the membership committee for several years, and she's about to rejoin the board in October 2024. She's one of the expert leads of the Knowledge Exchange Task and Finish Group on alternative publishing platforms, one of the task leads in the Craft OA project, and she holds a master's degree in geography and a PhD in agricultural science. And finally, our third panelist, Maxim Kupreyev, who is a technical manager at OPERAS. Maxim oversees the scientific and technical coordination of OPERAS projects, as well as its core infrastructure and services portfolio. He has over 15 years of experience in information management in industrial and academic contexts, with previous occupations including software tester at Konica Minolta, research associate at the Berlin Brandenburg Academy of Sciences, and ex-technologies developer at the Goethe Institute in Frankfurt. His academic background includes a PhD in Egyptology and numerous publications on topics ranging from digital editions, workflows, to historical linguistics. So Clara, Xenia, and Maxim are going to take us through their findings throughout the project and let us know how the project is addressing ththese issues around technical challenges. And there will be some chance for a bit of interaction from you later on. We have a Mentimeter at the end, and there will be some discussion. So I'll hand straight over to Clara.
Thanks. Thank you, Joanna. Can you hear me? Yes. So before I start, Joanna, can you just? Yeah, thank you. Before I start with our main topic, I'd like to briefly introduce the project to the ones that don't know about it yet. Craft Away, creating a robust, accessible, federated technology for open access. That's a mouthful. It has a duration of 3 years. It started in January 2023, and it has a consortium of 23 institutions from 14 different European countries. Next slide, please. So the main objectives of the project are to provide technical improvements for journal platforms and journals software, build communities of practice to foster overall infrastructure improvement, increase visibility, discoverability, and recognition for Diamond Open Access Publishing, and to integrate Diamond Open Access Publishing with the EOSC and other large-scale data aggregators. But our session today will mainly focus on the technical standards and requirements for best publishing practices, that this corresponds to the tasks that we are and were responsible for in the project. So our main task was how to define what a technical standard was and how we discern them from other kinds of standards, such as editorial standards. Our sister project, DMAS, focuses more on these editorial standards. And we also try to identify standards for each one of the FAIR principles. We decided to include 5 policy and service-related documents of technical standards and best practices in our report. These documents are, in many of their elements, very forward-facing and act as aspirational targets for their stakeholders. They do not depict what the majority of technology platforms, journals, and publishers are already implementing, but rather what the authoring bodies perceive as a currently achievable ideal to meet their current minimum and recommended requirements. So when looking at this policy and at these policy documents, if you look at them together, they provide a quite unique perspective of the scholarly communication ecosystem. So basically, we focused on 2 key policy documents: the widely supported open access publishing policy paper Plan S from and the extensible quality standard in institutional publishing, the EXIP. It's now been rebranded as DOAJ, and it was compiled by our sister project, DMAS. You'll see that I am one of the authors of that document as well, because of our representation in both projects. And then the other key policy documents was the DOAJ inclusion criteria and the DOAJ seal. And finally, the open air guidelines and standards for key open access service providers. Because this report aims to contribute to the interoperability of Diamond Open Access Publishing, we also wanted to take a look at the EOSC interoperability framework, but no more concrete standards were added after checking this framework. So if you change the slide, yeah. So as I was saying, we checked standards for each of the FAIR principles, and I don't want to go over them for a long time, but I just wanted to give you a few examples of what we found out. We found out that for the F findability, PIDs are very important for finding articles in the long terms, DOIs or other article PIDs. So therefore, they are required by Plan S, and it's also a recommendation for the DOAJ seal. For the A, accessibility, we found out that file location was mandatory in the open air guidelines. For interoperability, human and machine readable information, copyright holder and licensing is provided in each publication. So that was mandatory for EXIP version 1 and recommended by Plan S and the DOAJ seal. And finally, for the R, reusability, full text in machine readable format, it was one of the standards that was recommended. But not all of the standards fit into just one category. So some do not fit in any at all. And this is one of the aspects that we found out, and we listed as one of the problems of like trying to categorize everything in one category. So in addition to creating an initial connection between scholarly publishing practices and technical requirements of the FAIR principles, we think that as far as we know, this is the first attempt to systematically collect and compare the different requirements by the selected policies. We are aware that not all the journals and platforms are going to be able to meet these standards, and some will struggle to fulfill such requirements. So that's why we have our next colleague, Xenia, because the next task in the project was to identify the challenges and gaps that these requirements could pose. So if you want to come, Xenia. Thank you.
So thanks, Clara, for setting the scene of how our research in the project progressed. As Clara already introduced, the next step in the project was to look where are the gaps. So where with regards to these technical standards, journals and publishing platforms, especially Diamond publishing platforms, scholarly-led journals and institutional-run platforms are struggling with. To approach this question, we use different data sources. So on the one hand, we use different data from the DOAJ. In addition to the public data set, which is downloadable from the DOAJ website, and also the harvestable article metadata, which were both limited to the journals indicating that they don't use APCs to having the Diamond subset. We also had a look at the not yet available dataset of rejected applications, which were, of course, anonymized. A further source was the Open Access Diamond Journal study from 2021. The findings document as well as a dataset which is public too. Data from the Diamonds project, which were later on then published in the landscape survey of the Diamonds project. Diverse articles on the topic. And we also looked at 3 different open source softwares, so Open Journal Systems, Janeway, and Lodel. Lodel is a software Open Edition runs on, for those maybe not knowing, and how these softwares could help to fulfill this standard. As Clara mentioned in her presentation, in the first report, we grouped the standards we found in these different documents around the FAIR principles, because we thought it might be a good idea to look how FAIR principle, which most comes from the data world, maybe also is valid in the publishing world, and because the principles which are represented through FAIR are also really important for articles, especially journal articles, as this was our subject. But then we also, when analyzing the standard, we somehow discovered that another grouping maybe makes more sense. So to group them more along what they are about. So, for example, persistent identifiers like DOI, handle, ARC, raw, ORCID, and also ISSN, only naming a few examples here. With regard to metadata, so exchange protocols, functionalities to export metadata and transfer it from one system to the other. Also features regarding content, for example, text and data mining abilities, long-term preservation, and also website features. As I said, as Clara said before, we were focusing on the technical aspect. So we mean something like search engine optimization, unique URLs for every article, and so on. These standards, the presentation work for all of these standards we analyzed like that we again described the standards in some level of detail so that people really know what's about. Again, explaining which of these documents are requiring the standard, and also, and this was the main point, which challenges and gaps are in place in relation to the implementation of these standards. And as I said before, how could existing open source publishing software help to fulfill, to implement these standards? And we also had a kind of a summary at the end of each of these descriptions. I'm already coming to the main conclusions we draw from our analysis. And because I forgot it at the very beginning, I also wanted to acknowledge Mikhail Laxo, who was leading the work on this very report, who unfortunately couldn't be here today. So on the one hand, we found that establishing best practices and recommendations can ease the adoption of new technologies and standards, as they act like a guiding principles. So if you want to make that your authors comply with Plan S because they're funded by Plan S, then you need to think about how you can make your journal like eligible, or like, no, not eligible is not the right word. It's like compliant. Sorry. And the next thing was that we quite see that a lot of implementation gaps remain. And so we think it's even more important to bring knowledge about standards and also the functionality for visibility, for findability, for really making the journal more sustainable to the editors and also the staff. And also, yeah, as I said, these standards are not there for the sake of their own. They all fulfill a viable function for the publications. And we also see that switching to modern editorial support systems like the open source solutions I just mentioned helps a lot in fulfilling these standards. We also, when screening the documents, we also, and reading the articles, we also saw that a lot of resources on how to implement those kind of standards, not all of them, but a lot of them are already in place. There is guidance by the DOAJ to get journals compliant. PKP has several resources how to do or how to achieve compliance for Plan S using OJS, just for an example. But since there are these gaps still around, we somehow concluded that there is a targeting issue that people maybe don't know. And another big thing which came up in the documents were like people in all these surveys we analyzed, a lot of them said, yeah, we are scarce of resources, we are scarce of time, we just cannot really deal with all that. Yeah, and this is just a really brief outlook on what are we going to do now with these findings, because the next or the current ongoing work in our work package within this project is creating training materials, and we try to try out different formats. For example, colleagues from Croatia were training local editors there on the usage of XML publishing in the Croatian platform Hilchak. The Craft OA project in another work package organized a summer school for editors with also various topics, which were also in place in our reports. We will have an event in October, which is also directed at editors and infrastructures to discuss also the project results or in-between results. And we've contributed to the guidelines developed by the DIAMAS project, which refer to the Diamond Open Access standard Clara mentioned earlier on. And one of the project partners is going to develop a fair self-assessment toolkit, which aims at how publishing infrastructure can make their operations more fair. We just developed a Moodle course on long-time preservation, as this is one of the things we found is really still a big gap, that people do not care or do not have appropriate long-term reservation in place. So I hand over to Maxim, because it was on the slide, but I said, as there is a talk, because our work also led to the upskilling curriculum, Maxim is going to present. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So first let's try. Yeah, it works. Basically, my work here as Opera's representative was builds up on the previous two steps. So we had the first, what Clara presented, report on standards. So we identified what are the standards which are used in the industry. In the second step, we analyzed what are the gaps in implementing the standards. So the third step, which Opera was responsible for within this project, is to create a curriculum to cover the gaps. So that's, you see here, kind of a logical build-up in this sequence of events going on within the project. In addition, what we used in the curriculum are two additional documents, which were already mentioned by Clara. The first is Diamond Open Access Standard, which is previously called XIP. Now it's changed the name. And the second document are the Diamond guidelines for the institutional publishing service providers. So, what is this curriculum? Curriculum for now is a kind of a theoretical construct. If we want the community to acquire the knowledge on standards, on technologies, and so on, how would we build it up? The curriculum contains training topics and provides details on them. It targets different audiences and user levels. We also try to assign topics to the relevant FAIR principles. It's not an easy task, as also Clara said. Then we also kind of aggregate the existing training materials, but also the task of Craft2A is to create new training materials. And finally, we offer a practical guide how to organize and structure the upskilling. So I will give you a glimpse into the basically. There's always, when you compile semantically different topics, it's very difficult to organize them. So we saw in the first attempt the FAIR principles were kind of organizing structure and mechanism behind the whole structure. In the second attempt, as was presented, topics were selected, and the same task was here. And you see here we have first big topic, which is called publishing systems and their features. The second block are the metadata, which again split into the subtopics, and the third big block is the content accessibility. If we take a look at one of the examples, at metadata 1, qualities through standards, what do we intend? What do we want to train? It's divided into two user levels. We intend to give introduction to metadata, to the core metadata. It's basically cross-standard comparison. You probably know that the same thing has different labels and different standards. So this introductory course can just compare the basic metadata fields and give intro to the concept of metadata. Why is it so important? The second topic goes deeper into the standards themselves. For example, Dublin Core or mods, whatever, open air guidelines, and so on. And also on their quality control, because I think this is issue, as my background as a software tester, I have to input here. It's very important not only to provide metadata, it's important to control the quality through the different validation mechanisms using the XML schemata and so on. The third topic is metadata harvesting, which depositing an expert, and it can include training on OAPMH, on the protocol, but also the whole infrastructure around it, on the SWORD protocol for depositing in the repositories, and also mass metadata expert. And another issues we would like to touch are the control vocabularies, because you might know that the use of control vocabularies is basically the foundation of the quality data. You don't have a chance to insert their own value in the metadata tag and so on. So we'd like also to train on the use of the vocabularies for such as like core resource types vocabulary. Here kind of an overview how it can potentially look like. You see that basically two topics are assigned to foundational level, and other topics are assigned to advanced level. But you can argue clearly that you can also teach OAPMH on the level on the foundational level. Just to give an introduction, that's all preliminary. So we just kind of were trying to kind of play a bit And then the same is with audience. We decided to divide into institutions and the target audiences. I mean, into institutions and roles. And so because within the institutions, there are certain roles. And yeah. And again, the attribution to FAIR principles metadata, unfortunately, is one of these cases when if you take the whole block of metadata, it's basically all supposed to be fair. So you cannot say it's findable or accessible only. So it's all fair. Yeah. So what's next? We have a curriculum, which is, as I said, it's a theory for now. We have initially published it on Zenodo in April 24. Then we released it as a Gitbook, as a website, basically, as website pages. We gave a succinct description of all its content in a blog post. But it's not only theory. As Xenia mentioned, we already tried to implement some features of this curriculum during the summer school for journal editors, which took place in Czech Republic and in May this year. And I was teaching there the like XML publishing part, especially the XML quality. Yeah, so the second step is to present the whole thing during the Craft2A Tech event, which will take place in Italy in October 24. I invite everyone to register for the event. The registration is still open. And I have to say, October, there's another reason to come to Turin in October, because that's the time of Vendemmia, and Vendemmia is a grape harvesting season. So it's a time when wines are prepared. So you'll get an opportunity to drink some of the best Piedmont wines. Yeah, so you're welcome. But yeah, apart from wines, what we actually intend to do during the tech event is to work a bit on the structure of the whole of the document. A current idea is to kind of adopt it to the Diamond Open Access standard. So you would have the points of the standard, you have the singular elements of the standards, and then you'll have specific trainings tailored to them. In that sense, it's kind of compatible. So, but there are different opinions about this. Maybe it's not. So we'll have to work on the structure. Yeah, and another idea is that it's my idea, but it's not. Maybe that can lead to a kind of certification. That means either institutional or individual, so that we'll have a kind of a certification mechanism for Diamond Open Access publishing. But that's you didn't hear it, so it's just like one of the ideas, which is yeah. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Clara, Xenia, and Maxim, for a run-through of the work of Craft2A in this area. And I think one of the strengths of this project and this piece of work is that it is something that's being done collectively across the project partners. So it is about going back to what Reggie was saying together, that kind of collective responsibility and ownership of this work, which is really important. Before we move on to questions, we have a Mentimeter for you, which I'm hoping is going to appear on the screen now. Yes, it has. Yeah. So if you could just scan that and log on. And what we're really interested in hearing from you is, what are the technical gaps for you? What are the technical gaps for us in our community, and how can we best fill them? So I can see that responses are starting to come in. I think if we go to the next screen, no, but can you not write? Can you keep writing while this is coming up? Yeah. Okay. Okay, while this is starting to work, metadata, it's all about the metadata. I'm going to ask a couple of questions of our panel. And the first one, I'm being a little bit of a devil's advocate because we've been talking about global equity. We've been talking about not imposing standards from Europe, from the global north onto the global south. And I wanted to ask Clara about the work around standards and whether this project, the AMAS project as well, perhaps has taken into account what other standards there are, and have there been thoughts about how to bring these pieces of work together?
Because of the, as you said, because of the scope of both DMS and Craft OA, we haven't been able to select enough policies or documents that come from other regions in the world. So we are aware that they do exist. We are aware that they are very good, but we haven't been able to analyze them properly. We do hope that with the next easy funded project, Almasi, we may be able to analyze some of these and expand this knowledge to Latin America and Africa, which are the two regions that are in scope for the next project.
That's great, thank you. I can see that these are flying by, so I can't actually, I'm not actually going to be able to respond to them all here. But there's loads and loads of comments coming in, which is just brilliant. Xenia, I wanted to ask you that one of the findings from your part of the work was around the switching to modern systems. So if we all updated to the latest version of OJS, many of these problems might be solved. What do you think the barriers are?
Yeah, indeed. So just to clarify, with regard to OJS, the version we looked at for the report, it was the 3.3 long-term support version, so LTS version. I think it's a mixture of somehow legacies. So we are on, I don't know, on a WordPress page. And just because the initial editor thought this would be a brilliant idea, and then everybody follow him or her said, okay, now we do it that way because we always did it that way. And then I think also because this was another finding I also mentioned it shortly, because a lot of institutional-based infrastructures and scholar-led journals are facing or struggling with scarce resources. They just don't have the personnel and the time and the efforts which would it take to implement such a system, to move maybe already existing content there, and also sometimes even to maintain the system. I was on a open access conference in Germany last week, and we discussed that, and people were just saying, yeah, I don't know, I have to go to my IT department and say, please, could you install that plugin for me? And as long as these resources are not there, this problem, I think, will remain. A colleague of us in another subsection of the project, she did research on what are the difficulties with, or what are the major difficulties or not difficulties with maintaining and upgrading OJS. So she was focusing on OJS, and another colleague, he also said some of the things for Lodel. Yeah, and it's for some people, even these installing and upgrading procedures are difficult. So I think the knowledge should be even spread more widely that this really helps. And on the other hand, if we want to support institutional publishing, support Diamond in the sense of Diamond publishing, more resources have to be allocated to that services and not only project financed fixed term contracts. The precarity topic we had earlier this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it also goes back to conversation we had yesterday about this being a labour of love and not being adequately resourced. I mean, with that in mind, Maxim, your training program is incredibly thorough, should we say? How on earth are we going to be able to build capacity through a training course when we don't have the people, I guess, to be able to train up and share this expertise with?
Yeah, I really don't want love to be the answer to this, because I mean, we need emotion, but we also need time, and so it is about love, but it's also about resources. So I mean, our response to this, what to do, what if like researchers don't have money or time to be trained? I mean, our response would be threefold. I mean, first, the courses are self-paced, so anyone can take it whenever you have time. Second, if you do have time to come to visit an online course, for example, which will be live, you can go to an online course, non-self-paced, but like training, online training. But also, as the summer school showed in Czech Republic, we'll be doing trainings on the spot. So if you do have time and a bit of maybe some resources from institutions, you can come also to the summer schools. And the next summer school will be in Portugal, actually in Coimbra, which is here. So there's another reason to come to Coimbra next year, where the Craft2A will present, will again teach on these topics. Yes, that basically our response. That's, I would say, if we go deeper, it's more like a philosophical question, how to change the system. But all we can do is just make them free in any possible way, and that's the how is there's another issue in the European project is sustainability. After the project finishes, what do we do? And we are working right now in this direction. So the project will finish the end of next year. So we're now thinking on the long-term solution for this. And this long-term solution is called Diamond Capacity Hub. And it's being built right now. So the Diamond Capacity Hub is the central point where all this will be stored, and we'll hopefully have a sustainable infrastructure, partly supported by French government. But but that's I mean, sustainability is an issue in the European project. So that's.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for all your input so far. I can see there's lots around metadata, interoperability, open science, PIDs, a huge number of challenges for us as a community. And I wanted to open up the conversation to you now. And I know, because I've had conversations with some of you over the last day and a half about some of the challenges that you are facing as a small diamond publisher in terms of the technical standards, the technical capacity of your organization. So it will be really good to hear both your experience, but also if you have any questions for our panel.
One of the things that I noticed sort of scrolling up the screen was possibly a gap, not so much in technical knowledge and skills, but caring about standards and their existence. And with my consulting hat on, I have just had a publisher say to me, we don't need to worry about accessibility, we're too small, which may have given me a minor heart attack. Was this something that you guys came across in your project, that there are some publishers that just say, it's fine, we're just going to carry on as we are, we don't need to worry about standards?
Yeah. Well,
Please do.
Is it working?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Um, yeah, that's definitely a difficult point you're addressing. I heard about that not like in the closer project context, but like attached. So attached to the project was also PKP development, so sprint in Hanover last year, and there one person, so like from the wider community, so not directly from the project, he was also saying, yeah, but standards is something only legacy publishers are using to kick small endeavors out of the market. And I was quite shocked because I thought, okay, but there's no understanding on what like functionalities they fulfill for, yeah, for accessibility or for findability, for content being around and being also like usable. And so it was only like it was only one example, but yeah, I also heard about like this criticism that this could be something like bad because originally like the larger publishers were already implementing it. So, but I hope it's only a few cases, and for me it was the only case I heard about. So I hope hopefully.
Yeah, but this is a complex subject because when you think about fair principles, sometimes it's sometimes about definition as well, because it's whether sometimes where interoperability might mean metadata to one group, it might mean exposure to a particular API to someone else. It's complex. And the industry needs more training and so on. So yeah, it's care, but also training, I think.
Yeah, the basic idea of the foundational level courses is actually to raise awareness. It's not, I mean, we don't have aspiration to train the experts in Dublin Core or whatever. The idea is that if you have an introductory level course, you just let people know something like this exists and it's important. So that's the whole idea of dividing into different levels. So yeah, it's certainly an aspect. So I hope we will cover this.
Thank you. Are there any other questions in the room? Yeah, Catherine. Do you want to wait for the mic? Yeah.
Thanks for your presentation. In addition to working with people to get them to care and to understand how to sort of optimize metadata, is there also a sort of an impulse to work with, for example, open source platforms to ensure that they can support consistent metadata? Because I think that that's one of the challenges that many of us face, is being able to work with platforms and have them be interoperable, or at least modular, working toward a common goal when they don't support similar metadata standards.
So within the project, but within another like subunit, there is on the one hand ongoing development on and that part for open journal system, because it's the largest of these open source systems by usage. On the one hand, having plugins to enable more metadata, and on the other hand, also core feature development. So, for example, I don't know, we had it before on multilingualism on the data within, like, which can be supported by OJS, and it will be a core release for one of the next versions. So there is exchange with these platforms,
Yeah, maybe to add up on this, what you've seen is just one of the tasks in one of the work packages within the whole project. The core business of Craft2A is actually what you mentioned. The core business, we develop the plugins for OGS. We develop the core extensions to OGS itself, and we develop other products. So it is actually that's just kind of one of the tracks, but the core business, Craft2A, is a technical project. So it heavily works with creating software applications who would help people to care about technical standards and so on. Because as it was mentioned in the previous talks, just applying a system such as OGS or Lodel already makes you comply with most of the standards. So if you, and that's why Craft2A is massively supporting OGS and PKP to develop.
May I?
Yeah. I mean, there's there is one of the just add there's one of the tasks is creating compatibility between Lodel and Lodel, you know, is a French product for Open Edition, no? To create compatibility between OGS and Lodel. So that's
but the idea is to kind of presenting, and also of course the code is also all documented, and it's really also like also a bit of the thinking behind it to make it act like a blueprint also for other systems. So this is really like OJS was only taken because it's really important, and lots of people are using it. I think the last analysis that did revealed that more than 40,000 journals are running on OJS, and therefore it was like a strategic decision to say, okay, we're going to implement it there, and also because there were partnerships already in place, but with keeping in mind that it should be like the concepts should also be implementable for other systems, right? Yeah.
One more question here from Caroline.
Sorry.
Thank you. This is such an interesting discussion. I'd like to know something about the licensing of the open infrastructure that you're partnering with. Had you considered open source licenses that would protect platforms such as OJS from becoming privatized in the future? Because currently there isn't anything to stop an open source code base actually being co-opted by commercial actors. And it sounds to me like if we're building scholar-led and community-governed infrastructure, we might actually want to license our open source technologies so that they can never become commercial in the future. Thank you.
Interesting question.
So this was definitely, so it was not on really the focus, but there was just recently released by PKP a blog post on that issue I would like to refer to, that these infrastructures not for sale, and they were quite outlining what they mean by that. And in this regard, I think also like the Poetry principles are to be mentioned for infrastructures that like have a commitment to not to get sold out, and well, but of course, if something is open source, it's also like the code is freely available, and you could also, if potentially somebody would take it, you could also start or continue developing like another fork from there.
Right. I mean, I guess what I had in mind is a copyleft license, which would prevent anybody building on that code base and making their code similarly open.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. I know there are some people from PKP in the room. I don't know if they want to comment on that. I think, I mean, there are commercial, or there are companies that have taken OJS and commercialized it. But I think what's important is that that PKP and OJS itself and all of our other open infrastructures that are out there have the right legal entity, have the right governance structure, and have those reassurances in place for the community that they can't be taken over. So I appreciate that's perhaps not an answer to that question. Thank you all so much for a really interesting discussion. I hope we've managed to convince you to care about technical standards and how important they are for the diamond community if it is going to be successful. All the project outputs are available on the project on Zenodo and accessible from the project website. So please do take a look. Please do reuse. That's exactly what they're there for. So first of all, I want to thank all of our speakers again for their contribution. And then I have a very important bit of housekeeping, which is not about the coffee break, but about this evening's reception, which is going to be outside at Estufa Fria. I don't know where that is either, but I've been reassured by Bernie that we will be shepherded in that direction when the time is right. But just please don't miss the reception. It is outside in a lovely area. Yes?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
that's...
Yes.
Yes, please. Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yes, I will do. Yes, sorry, I forgot to mention. I was going to check that we could actually get hold of those outputs because I know that they will be really useful for the project. So thank you all for that input. And yes, we will make the outputs from that Menti available afterwards. Thank you. And now it's time to hand over to the next panel, which is on openness and robust scholarship in the age of generative AI. Thank you.